Okay, so Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera students. We're going to continue with the solution and suspension. So, in the last video, we learned about the rate of solution. We're going to learn the difference between solution and also the suspension. So, we're going to look at the meaning of suspension. So, suspension is actually a mixture, okay, a mixture of big particles that settle out when left undisturbed. So maksudnya benda ni dia pandai termendap ke bawah. Okay, why? Because they have big particles. So they won't be completely dissolved, and you can found them some on the surface and also mostly on the bottom of the bottom surface. Okay, so liquid that need to be shaken well before using. So for example, um, here, if you look at this, we have here oil and also some liquid. Okay, so this thing suspension means that when you leave this liquid, okay, or when you leave this object in the in its undisturbed state, then it's gonna form. Okay, it's gonna form maybe two layers, or at least you're gonna see some particles, some on the surface and mostly on the bottom. Okay, that's what's the meaning of suspension. So kamu boleh nampak sedikit dekat bawah dan juga mungkin beberapa dekat atas. Okay, so that's the reason why when you have suspension, they will always write as chicken well before using. So for example, if we drink detergent or Yakult, they always say you shake well before using or shake well before drinking. It's because it will have suspension at the bottom of the bottle or small plastic that they use for detergent or Yakult if you ever drink one of those um, stuff. Okay, so suspension ni kamu boleh jumpa ada benda terlendap dekat bawah. Okay, so kamu kena goncang dulu baru dia akan mix well. So for example, we have here oil and vinegar dressing. So oil and vinegar dressing. So oil, you know, it won't mix with the it won't mix with vinegar. So if this thing mixed up, they're gonna have like two layers or at least some particles on the surface, some particles on the bottom. Okay, and we also have like muddy water. So muddy water is something that you put in the flask. Okay, so this is water. Here we have muddy water. You're gonna have the muds on the bottom and some muds, particles of muds on the surface. Okay, so that's what means by suspension. Dia ada terbendak dekat bawah. Okay, and then the difference between solution. Okay, the difference between solution and suspension is that when you look at solution, okay, when you look at solution, a solution is a mixture. Okay, a mixture that they dissolve together. So, for example, if I have sugar solution or a salt solution, that's when we have sugar or salt that completely dissolve in a water. Okay, so for example, if this is a salt and then this is a water, so you're gonna get a salt solution. So solution is when the mixture is completely dissolved together. So bila dia campur, betul-betul campur, tu adalah solution. So suspension is when kamu akan ada terendap dekat bawah. Okay, or ataupun some particles that does not mix up together. Okay, so when you just leave them on the table, dia akan terendap. So over time it will separate. Okay, it will separate over time. So like if you have maybe Yakult again, and then you shake it well, but then after you put on the table, over time it's gonna separate. Okay, it's gonna suspend at the bottom of the Yakult. Okay, so kamu akan jumpa dia dekat bawah ni. So that what does it mean by suspension. Okay, and then we also have here. Okay, so this is solution. Okay, and this is another solution. So solution is like when you have a completely dissolved, okay, a completely dissolved solvent in solute. So contohnya you have like air gula completely dissolved or air garam completely dissolved. Okay, compared to this is a suspension. Okay, this is a suspension. You can see the particles all over, all over the liquid. They langsung tidak dissolve completely. And also you can see suspension on the bottom. Okay, kamu akan nampak particles-particles dekat sini dan juga particles-particles di bawah. That's what does it mean by suspension. Does not dissolve completely. Okay, so we have here the Tyndall effect. Okay, we have this Tyndall effect. It's just an overview. Okay, you don't really need to know about the Tyndall effect in depth, but Tyndall effect is actually when you use light. Okay, when you use light to compare, okay, to confirm whether is this a solution or is this a suspension. Okay, so you use torchlight to know whether okay this is a solution or maybe this is a suspension. So contohnya when you take air air garam or air gula and then you letak flashlight and if the light pass through smoothly, okay, then it's a solution. But if the flashlight or the light they disperse, okay, reflected throughout, so this thing is a suspension. So this is how you confirm whether it's a solution or whether it's a suspension. Kamu guna cahaya. Okay, kalau dia tembus betul-betul dia adalah solution because solution is completely dissolved, right? But suspension dia akan disperse, dia akan reflected throughout the liquid. That's how suspension is. Okay, so another slide here. We have suspension. Okay, suspension and solution different. Okay, here solution is a clean, transparent, so they are completely dissolved. Suspension they are a bit cloudy, ataupun translucent. Okay, and then solution they contain one or more soluble substances. Okay, suspension they contain one or more insoluble. Sebab saya cakap tadi dia not completely dissolved. So mestilah ada insoluble substances. Okay. And then solution contains substances that cannot be easily separated. So this means if you have air gula or air garam that completely dissolved, you can't easily separate the water and the salt. But if you have suspension, okay, if you have suspension, this means you have, for example, here mud, okay, and also water. If I filter out, like for example, using a conical flask, okay, a conical flask and filter paper, I just pour it in. You're going to separate the muds here and also the water in the beaker, for example. Okay, so it's easily to separate the suspension. Okay. Um, yes, and we have also a Tyndall effect. So a Tyndall effect is the in solution, it does not scatter the light. Mean if you have a solution dia akan tembus terus sahaja. You don't have any problem because it's completely dissolved. But the suspension, because it's not completely dissolved, the light scattered. Okay, the light scattered, the light um terpantul dengan mana-mana. Okay, so it's scattered all over because solution is not completely dissolved. Okay, so I have this one video and it's going to be the ending for this first video. Okay, so this is example of the Tyndall effect. So how do you actually confirm whether it's a solution or whether it's a suspension? Okay, so for example, here we have a solution, okay, a solution or maybe suspension, and then yeah, this is a suspension. So you can see it's a bit cloudy. Okay, it's a bit cloudy. Whenever it's cloudy, this means it's a suspension. Whenever it's clear, transparent, it's a solution. Okay, so we're gonna this person will do the Tyndall effect on the solution. So this is a solution. Okay, and then here. So when you look at this is the Tyndall effect. Okay, this is the Tyndall effect. When the light managed to pass through without any problem, okay, just to pass through the solution. It's easily to pass through the solution. It's why because the solution is completely dissolved. Okay, the solute in the solvent has been completely dissolved in the solution. So that's why it's easy for the light to pass through. Compared to when you look at the suspension, when you look at the suspension, okay, when you look at the suspension, you will see that the light has been scattered. Okay, light has been scattered. Dia pantul sana sini sana sini sana sini. Why? Because this suspension is not completely dissolved. The solvent, the solute is not completely dissolved. Bila dia not completely dissolved, the light and everything has been scattered everywhere. Okay, dia macam a big mess. Okay, so that's what the difference between the solution and the suspension. Okay, using the Hindle effect. Okay, so if you have any question, you can always ask me as usual. Okay, so yeah, as usual. So if you have any question, you can always ask me. So this is just the difference between a solution and also a suspension. So we know that the suspension is clearly cloudy, and when the solvent and the solute does not completely dissolve, but for solution is transparent. Why? Because it's completely dissolved between the solvent and also the solute. So if you have any question, you can always